And we're live. All right. Well, you guys will have to tell me if my technology works. I don't actually know. I'm going to rely on you in the audience to tell me. It's been a little while since I've done a video. I'm Paul from Apex Mindset, by the way. Thanks for jumping in and of course supporting the channel with your subscription, your notification bell, and all that. We'll see how long it takes people to get in here because I really haven't actually. I don't think I've posted anything in like a week. Had to take a little bit of a hiatus. Some of it's Memorial Day thing, and sometimes you just need a break. You know what I mean? But it wasn't even so much that either. It was sorting out other things I was doing with this course I'm developing, as well as technology, and still sorting it out. So we'll see. It's my first live stream with my new setup. So we'll see if that actually works or if I got to make some tweaks. I have no idea. But we're going to, talk about things that'll make a girl fall in love with you instantly. Questions you can ask to cause her to instantly fall in love with you. It's a little bit of an overpromise. But one thing that guys struggle with, and I talked about this with Troy last week, and it's a little bit of push on this course, and I know that, but, we talked about actionable things too. It's a real problem guys have, which is continuing or keeping the conversation going. This isn't so much, I'm not so much thinking about pickup right now. I'm thinking about actually once you get her on the date, or even when you're kind of conversing over text. Although I wouldn't use some of these questions I'm going to hand to you here with texting quite so much, because what happens is it gets a little too deep for the text exchange. If you've not met with a girl, or if you only met her briefly and you're in the pickup phase, texting, getting too deep and trying to get too involved over text is probably not a good thing. It'll probably blow the attraction. What you're trying to do is spark curiosity, right? We've talked about this before. Curiosity, getting some investment from her, and building her imagination up in her fantasy brain, what I call building fantasy, so that she's, imagining, okay, what it might be like to be with a guy like this, right? Which is you, and a higher SMV, cool, sexually viable person to be with, right? But she's really got to more or less be curious. She's got to be curious enough to say yes and to be closed on and show up at wherever you guys are going to meet up for that sniff test, right? I call it a sniff test. It's where you're doing that first meeting and you're going to leave in 20 minutes, or you're going to allow it to continue for an hour or two. And that's just going to depend on her and her interest in what she's doing. And so to move things along into that, you want to build up her emotions and her excitement level over text, and understand. And I've talked about this in a lot of other videos. A couple videos ago, I talked about, main reasons why chicks will ghost you over text. And that's a good one to watch, because women, are very distracted in the sexual marketplace. They got a lot going on, and texting you over an app or some guy she just met is really a low priority if she's a pretty girl, because she has so many options out there. So it's just not, unless you really made an impact on her on that first meetup, or that actually I ain't saying meetup, but that first pickup scenario, if you're in person, unless you really made that impact, or unless you're a really high status person and she perceives you as high status, it's more than likely that you're just low priority. And so it's not that you're low priority, it's your avatar is. She just doesn't know you. And there's so many different options for her out there. So that's a big part of it, is the distraction and all that. You got to stand out above the rest over text and close the date. But then you get on the date, and what happens? What are you going to do? All right. I'll throw in here before I'll go into what I was going to talk about today. I don't have a ton of time. I'm booked with consults. apexmindset.net if you need to book a session with me. Yeah, so I can answer questions in the chat though. If those of you guys who are live, hit that like button, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Right, we can address them. So back to it. Usually, it's weird. Usually, I do get. Actually, out of you guys, somebody just say hi in the chat or something. And I'm only asking for that because I don't have any activity going on right now, which is not normal. Normally, I get some activity going on. I want to make sure with my new setup that I'm not somehow missing stuff. You know what I mean? But let's see, what does that do? Oh shit! I just pressed a button. I don't know what happened. Oh, now the whole chat just disappeared. God, I swear. What's this button do? Whoa. Don't want to do that. Anyway, I have no idea what happened. My chat thing like literally disappeared, so probably not going to see anything. If you guys have questions, that's all right, man. Sorry about that, guys. We'll just get into the topic, I guess, live, and I'll figure it out. Yeah, because it said chat, and then there was a thing. It said to see your participants, and I hit the button, and now all of it disappeared. Dude, whatever, man. Anyway, it's just very, very challenging for me, anyway, I guess. For anybody, really. None of this stuff is straightforward. That's what pisses me off about it. It's all a bunch of bull crap. You know what I mean? It's a bunch of, you have like a bunch of, no offense to my dork friends who love this crap, but you have a bunch of dorks who just love just like, let me waste an hour of my time just dicking with this cord and this little, these buttons to figure out, oh, well, that's cool. It does this. Like, dude, like, I don't care. I just want my crap to work. Like, and it's not intuitive. None of it makes sense. Like, why is it that why isn't my chat disappeared? Like, on you, like, you know what I mean? Fuck this shit. So anyway, it's just fucking irritating, man. Like, I've been dealing with tech all week, and it's been an irritation point for me, like a huge one. And my situation's improving, but I'm not happy about it. And nobody knows jack shit. Let me just tell you, all you guys who are real smart, prove to me you're real smart then with your fucking technology, because most of you guys don't know jack shit. I'm gonna tell you, because people will come on, people will tell me, oh, bro, you should do this, do that, do this. All right, sweet. And then I go to do it, and it doesn't do any of the things that I need it to do or it's supposed to do. And they don't have any answers. It's like nobody knows. Nobody knows. Like, everyone knows enough, like little bits and pieces, but like nobody knows anything. It's really irritating, actually. So back to the topic, though. Back to the topic. I cannot see any of your guys' comments now for no reason at all. I'll have to figure it out later. Anyway, so when you're trying to maintain a conversation with a chick, though, you want to connect with her on a deeper level. You don't want it just to be that dull date, you know what I mean, that you get on where, and she's been on a million of those, where she's awkward, the guy's awkward, you're just not making that social connection. You're just not sure what to talk about. And so this is designed to give you a little bit of a guideline of what that might be. All right. And so when you're in this conversation with her, there's a whole lot of nuances to this, whole lot of nuances with internal game, whole lot of in your inner game, whole lot of nuances when it comes to what I call empathy, which is really you're being curious about her. You want to kind of climb into her mind. You want to climb into her, just and perceive what her thoughts, experiences, perceptions, and all that stuff. You want to perceive what those are, and sort of get things from her perspective, and that way you can determine what her motivations are and what her barriers are when it comes to achieving her motivations. She's on a date with you. There's some part of her that has thought about or wants to get laid by you. That may be just in her hindbrain, but there's a part of her that wants that. There's a part of her that might want that on a consistent basis and want something more than that. Well, that may be in the back of her operating system, but it's definitely there. All right. So there's parts of her that want that stuff. And so it's being able to sort of determine and pull out those motivations, because there's other motivations that might be there as well. Beta provisioning is a motivation, for example, and you determine what her trigger points and her motivations are. And that way, when you communicate with her, you can bring her along into your frame and getting what you want, and also de facto she gets what she wants. That's the whole idea of benevolent self-interest. But in relationship or dating, that is more or less what you're wanting to do. You're not just getting what you want at her expense, because that's not going to lead to a very productive or good exchange, really, is it? So it's doing, you're doing what she wants, but not at your own expense, and you're not getting what you want out of the deal at her expense. You're both benefiting. But in order to recognize what those benefits are, what she's looking for and what her objections are, you really have to be able to climb into her head. That means being curious. All right. And so when you're on this date with this girl, when you're on that first meetup, you want to be curious about her. Curiosity and connecting with her on that social emotional level is going to get you whatever those results are that you're looking for, are going to get you those results more than likely, rather than focusing on what to say next or what your motives are, and so on and so forth. Like, if you just want to get laid, for example, you're going to get laid more by connecting with her on that level than just focusing on trying to get laid. All right, if that makes sense. And so with that focus, you're curious about her. And that curiosity then leads to questions. What kinds of questions might you ask? And you guys need to get, a little bit creative with your questioning, because some of those questions you're going to ask are just dull. They're very general. Well, what do you do? That's a big one. What do you do, like, for a living, or what's your job, or whatever? Occupation in the United States, occupation is one of the most safest things that people generally talk about. And most of, occupation is a very dull and very safe topic. Now, if you have a really cool job or cool occupation, that can be a DHV for you, or demonstration of higher value, but really, it's about as far as it goes. Even if your job is really cool, getting into the details of that at a point can be boring. And not only that, you're no longer really connecting with her on a emotional, social level. You're really just sort of telling her about yourself. It's like if you have a really cool job, like, okay, I could talk about some military experiences, for example, that might be considered really cool to some people, and some women might think that's hot and cool and everything. But that really cool job, those really cool experiences or whatever, it's really just one big conversation about DHV, right? It's just the whole conversation is just a one big demonstration of higher value. And that's not really connecting with that person on a different level, So you want to connect with her on a different level and inspire those emotions. You got to have conversations about some other things other than what she does for a living, or some basic general questions about her day, or some of the dull questions and dull topics, and general topics that are safe that you guys stick to. So I want you to think of the formula. We used to have this in sales called Ford, which was stand for family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And so when a salesperson was trying to build rapport with a client, they didn't know what to talk about. They would think of the Ford acronym, family, occupation, recreation, dreams, and pick something kind of off of that in order to try to connect with them. And that's okay for sales, I guess. It's not a bad technique, but we want to take that a lot further when we're talking about connecting with someone on a sexual level, right? I mean, a psychological sexual level. And so we want to take it past, just the basics with that. We want to get into her imagination. So seduction happens in the mind first and in her imagination. It doesn't happen in her logical brain. It doesn't happen in her parts of her brain where she's just recalling basic stuff about her life, or telling you about herself, or some of these things. Telling you about herself in a manner that doesn't inspire imagination isn't really seduction. That can be more of an interview. She'll feel like she's at a job interview if she's just sitting there repeating and answering questions that you're grilling her on. I say grilling because that's what she's going to feel like, that don't put her in her imagination. So we want to stick to recreation dreams, part of that acronym, but we want to take it a little bit further and think of things that can inspire imagination. Geography is one, places you've been, in the area, for example, can get you into, well, I've been to that I've been to that club or that restaurant. That's been a cool place. Really, I've never been. And then sort of, well, what do you like about it, or what's cool about it, or whatever. And oh, they had this, that, and the other. It kind of can put them in their imagination of what it'd be like to be at that place with you, or to, to do some of these things with you. Have you ever been to, I don't know, you know, say it's around Halloween. You're like, have you ever been to one of these haunted houses? And maybe it's something she's not done or into, whatever. And but then she gets into like her imagination. A lot of couples will do haunted houses, right? Especially couples that just start dating. It's kind of a fun experience for someone who just starts they just start seeing each other. So that can be something, right? That is along the lines of, it puts her in that imagination. It's something that you do recreationally. Social topics as well, hobbies, and goes along the lines with dreams too. So not hobbies like, well, give me a play by play on this, how you did that craft project because you're into crafting or something. Like, you don't care so much about that, but hobbies that would more or less recreational things that you would do that she could imagine herself doing. Travel is another good one. So these are all things that can put her in that imaginative state where she's imagining things that'll happen in the future. And that imagination is where seduction can happen. So it's very easy to transition even to sexual banter or more of sexual topics when she's in an imaginative mindset, and talking about traveling or going different places or experiencing different things and looking to experience things. Now, that's good conceptually, but so what are some specific questions we can ask? And no, these are not necessarily going to make her fall in love with you instantly. However, the title is not completely, that's kind of being a little sarcastic with that title, right? But it's not complete sarcasm or clickbaity. I'm really riffing and making fun of clickbaits, but with that, but it's because in a sense, if you get into these topics and ask these questions in a certain way, in the manner I'm about to tell you, and it keeps going like that, she's going to have those feelings that would match those love feelings. She's going to start connecting with you on that emotional level, and those, of course, those lust feelings as well. Okay, through the banter you're having with her in these types of questions that get her into her imagination. And so here's an example too. Like, let's take family can be a really dull topic, talking about her parents or talking about her brothers or sisters or some of you guys who are dating in the older dating market, we don't talking about kids and stuff or whatever, nieces, nephews. That can be a little bit dull. It can be interesting. It's a conversation, but it's not going to inspire emotions by itself. But you could ask the question, if you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would it be? And so most people have had challenges in their growing, when everyone's had a challenge or challenges when they've been growing up. And so that strikes to a real personal question, personal level, without it sounding, too personal. And it can really open her up. And if she is telling you about something she would change about her childhood and being open about that, and you're listening and having compassion for her, having empathy in the sense that you're trying to understand, you're making good eye contact, you're interacting in the conversation with a good tone of voice, nice even tone, that is going to bring her investment level way up a lot. So, on that acronym, talk about family, don't just ask dull questions. Asking something like, if you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would it be? Could really open her up. And this is also a good way to vet this new person, right? Because if she has a series of bad things, bad experiences, and dysfunctional family, that's a bit of a red flag. It's not necessarily a non-starter, but it's a red flag. How she talks about those things, frames those things, and the manner in which she sort of discusses those things will let you in on her level of emotional maturity, mental maturity, and it allows you to vet her a bit too. So it allows her to connect with you and invest more with you into you. and allows you to vet her more. Okay. You can play games in conversations too. Say games like, what is that? Puts them in their imagination a little bit, or at least gets their mind moving in that direction. So something to like, you just simply say, all right, we're going to play a quick game. Well, we're playing a game? Like, what do you mean? Yeah, we're playing a game. We don't know each other that well. So give me your life story in 4 minutes. Go. All right. And so have her and kind of do it in a playful way where she's telling you she has to, in 4 minutes, give you her life story. All right. So this is going to, you're on the date. If you do this, in 3 paragraphs, give me your life story, go. I don't know. That could work, but I've never really tried that. I wonder if that would actually work with it. But I wouldn't, that's my goal, is getting her on the date though over text, right? And getting her in the meetup, not sitting there and dicking around and having her write paragraphs to tell me her life story, right? So this doesn't really work or translate as well in the dating app. Plus, a girl's not invested. She's not invested enough to sit here and write you 2 or 3 paragraphs as to what, what her life story is. So I don't imagine that would work very often over text, but this is one of those things that really works well in person because you guys are figuring out what to talk about. You just sort of playfully go, well, you know what? We definitely need to expedite this getting to know each other thing. So we're going to play a game. We're going to play a game. Yeah, we're going to play a game. 4 minutes. You got 4 minutes to tell me your whole life story. Go. And then she's like, I'm like, what? Is that 3 minutes and 45 seconds? Come on, and it's like, and he's just like making a joke. And then she'll make you do it too. And it's fun. All right. It's kind of joking, a little bit fun, can break some ice. And now she tells you a bunch of stuff about herself. What she's selecting to tell you about is going to tell you a lot about her motivations, her state of mind, her perception on this date or meet up with you, so on and so forth. And remember, you want to be curious. So getting to know her, like you ask a question like that, pay attention to what she says and pay attention to what she's not saying, and then that'll give you a whole lot to talk about too. That can be a real good icebreaker. And now you got a ton of crap to talk about. Well, shoot, tell me more about that. You know what I mean? And then she's asking you questions about things because she'll want to make you do it too. Don't just offer to do it, but she'll probably want you to do it as well. And then, she'll have things that she'll be curious about too. And so that's that can be a lot of fun. And it's a game. And once you get in that game sort of gaminess of it, where it's like, let's play a game or let's do something, whatever kind of fun. Girls like games. You know what I mean? That's playful. Girls like playful game type stuff. It'll put her in a playful state. And it also gets her in that imagination. She's having to sort of think about what she's going to tell you, what she's not going to tell you, which puts her in a different part of her brain. And you can easily move things into fantasy and easily have discussions of a seductive nature or whatever from there. But it's not always about moving it into seductive talk. Seduction isn't necessarily about talking. It's about actually doing, right? But it does build that emotional connection that she'll have with you. Another one could be, let's see. You could do like, you could ask, I'm trying to lose train of thought here. So back to like, okay, so how, back to family, how close or warm is your family? That's a good question. How close or warm, would you consider your family? Or how close are you to your family? Is a good one. Or you could say, well, do you feel your childhood was good, like happier than most people's? And that's a good one too. So if she had a bad childhood or whatever, this is a good vetting point. But again, asking that kind of a question is real personal and it has the same effect as the first one. Instead of just talking about occupation, you could ask, well, what constitutes a perfect day for you? All right. So she's like, oh yeah, this week was okay. I mean, whatever, this, that, and the other, just working, Oh yeah, that's cool. What do you do? She tells you what you do. Yeah, all right. Yeah, all right. Well, what would constitute a perfect day for you? You said the day was okay, but what would constitute a perfect day for you? That's a good question too. Puts her in her imagination. Now it takes that occupation, dull conversation into something a little bit more exciting, right? And so I'll interrupt my train of thought here to say, I can't see if you're just getting on, I cannot see the chat at all. I have no idea what happened. I clicked something and now I got nothing. So if you're in a chat right now saying chatty things, I can't see anything. And I don't know why that is, because I'm doing this directly through YouTube, not even doing it through StreamYard. So don't know. Trying to figure out all my crap. Still trying to figure out all my crap. So, and I get new problems too. What's fun is I get new problems like every day. That's what's really cool. Like I figure things out, and then a new problem just sort of happens, and you're like, awesome. But they're not problems I like solving, like dating, sexual marketplace, psychology, overcoming limiting beliefs, or stuff like that. They're problems with the crap that I need to get technology to work. So that's been a real challenge. You guys can see on this Friday, I'm about fed up with it, right? But I will say that some people have given some helpful hints and stuff like that. And I do appreciate those things, but it's still very frustrating. Back to some questions though. So yeah, I can't see your chat, but jam the like button. This is good information, helps me out. With your likes, we'll get more subscribers, and then awesome. What will happen is with more subscribers, I'll have more opinions on technology for me to try and have not work or work, depending on what day it is. All right. So another thing for gaming though, too, you can play a game, you can say, well, you could say just kind of, you don't say necessarily let's play game, but you could say, well, share, tell me like 5 things positive about yourself. Sounds like a weird question, but it's just like if it can kind of be a breakup of the discussion if the discussion has gotten dull. I got a fun question. Why don't you tell me 5 things about yourself that's positive? All right, so that's a good thing too, and again, key in what she's talking about, and kind of what she's not talking about as well. Okay. And so those are some good things that you can bring up that will bring things into our imagination. I guess we got, a couple more would be, is there something that you've dreamed of doing for a long time? So that's a good question to ask. Like what is it you've dreamed about or thought about doing for a long time, but haven't had a chance to do yet? Asking that question is good. That puts her into her imagination, gets her thinking about her dreams. She'll tell you a lot in these types of questions. And again, then from there, you can pivot into more discussions about that, connect with somebody on a deep level. And this is, I'm covering these. Some of you guys, this is going to come real easy. You're like, oh, well, yeah, of course I would do that. I know everything. A lot of you guys, though, however, these things are real challenges for you. I get that a lot where it's like, okay, what do I talk about like in the date? Like what do I talk about in the middle of it? Because it's real easy to get online. You can watch my old videos and get some of the text game stuff down. That's really calibrated, right? Usually, right? You think about what you say. She sends a response. You got time to respond. You don't have to respond immediately, and you can sort of figure out the best way to, tailor a response back that'll sort of move things along into the meetup. But once you're in the meetup, guys often fall on their face because they just don't know the meat of what they should be talking about or saying. So these are some good tips for that stuff, right? But yeah, when you get into dreams, asking her what she's dreamed about doing for a long time, and then after she tells you what that is, well, how come you haven't done it yet, or what's been stopping you, or whatever, and being a part of that conversation, and she'll start thinking about her dreams and goals and aspirations when it comes to men as well, whether she overtly tells you that or not. And chances are that's going to involve you, at least as a consideration for that, because you're having this conversation with her, connecting with her on this deep level, and you're good looking enough and high S&V enough for her to end up on a date with you, right? So that's a good way, like you can connect that, that's a good connection where she starts imagining herself she's not going to tell you about this, but she starts imagining herself into these scenarios in her dreams and her goals, like imagining you being a part of her life because you're having the conversation with her. There's a sexual exchange there. There's seduction, and it just helps bring her along. Another thing too, a final tip we'll do for this video here is this technological nightmare of a video. Hopefully not really. Hopefully my voice is clear and the image is clear. If I got that, that's all I can ask for. And then of course you get my bitch breaks where I bitch about the bullshit that I'm dealing with. But yeah, you can tell her. Don't be afraid to tell her what you like about her and what you notice about her, and get creative about that. You know, oh, you're so beautiful, or you're so gorgeous, or you're so pretty, or you look nice in that dress. These are things she hears all the time. You know, and so when you're in conversation, you know, you might be, you might say, you know what I noticed about you, and then whatever it is you noticed, and it could be something. I noticed that you have a really good sarcastic humor. I love good sarcasm. I noticed that's something you have going for you. something that's simple, right? If she's got kind of a sarcastic sense of humor, and in a good way, in a playful way, not some naggy, entitled, unpleasant way, right? So that could be something you notice about her, or I notice that you always look up and kind of do one of these when you're thinking about like something in the past or your childhood. Do you notice that you do that? Just kind of pointing something out like that, right? Little things, and then she'll get like maybe a little self-conscious about it, or what? Oh, no, I don't do that, or whatever. You're like, no, it's cute, it's fine, it's actually attractive, it's playful. So being willing to say like in things that you notice when you're in person, and this is why you don't lead with compliments. You avoid that unless you're in a position of power when you're giving the compliment, meaning she's already attracted to you, sees you as high status, high SMV. Leading with compliments isn't a good way to start with the initial pickup, but once you're in the interaction with her, actually on the meetup and stuff like that, you can definitely start saying things you like about her, because she's investing in you enough, right? She's demonstrating desire by being willing to show up on the date and try to look good and smell nice and try to engage you in conversations and stuff, right? So she's demonstrating investment. And so when she's demonstrating that investment, that puts you in that position of power that you need to be in. So you're not simping for the girl, right? But now you're in a position where she sees you as a masculine, attractive alpha option. And from that position, that's a good place to be able to deliver compliments. All right. You can tell her how pretty her eyes are, for example, something so simple and stupid, right? Or that, you have really good hands, things like that. Noticing the little things that the general dude that just stares at her photos and thirsts about her photos wouldn't notice, right? The general average dude wouldn't notice these things. Compliments about behavior are really sometimes more effective than about necessarily nice TNA, right? Because again, she gets that from everybody, including the beta males. So what differentiates you makes you different? What demonstrates that you are your sexual interest and that you notice these little things about her? And by noticing little things about her too, in a good way, it can make her self-conscious. I mean that in a good way, not in a bad way, where she sees you like, oh, wow, you notice these little things about me. Now she starts being a little more conscious of her own behavior and knowing that you're probably going to notice some of those things. Do you know what I mean? And so like and when she's a little self-conscious, not in a bad way, like, or whatever, like not in a, in an like a toxic way, but just where she's like more aware of what she's doing, knowing that you might notice little imperfections or little quirks about her. And this isn't because you're negging her necessarily to demonstrate that. It's just because you notice something small that most people won't necessarily pick up on. Then she'll like, have a little bit of that anxiety about her own behavior and maybe her quirks that she doesn't feel are as attractive. And that then puts her in that qualifying position. Now she's qualifying to you now. she's demonstrating more investment by being more particular and conscious about her own behavior. Actually, that's quite a bit of more investment that she's demonstrating there. And so, yep, those are some things that you want to be able to do. And if you do a combination of these things, the clickbaity title won't necessarily be incorrect. I mean, she will start to emotionally gravitate towards you. Again, now which one of these little examples I gave you will you use? It's going to depend on the girl, right? And what's relevant to her, what's interesting to her. You have to find her trigger points and what is going to get the most response. And what I recommend is just sort of thinking of the acronym family, occupation, recreation, dreams, but then spinning off from that, throw in geography, travel, and social events and social circle things, right? So I would throw in those as add-ons. And as you kind of go through little topics and questions, beliefs are okay too, but beliefs don't tend to inspire necessarily a connection on that level or attraction. They can, but it's going to depend on that's one's really going to be dependent on the girl. The thing about beliefs, though, too, is that it almost, I have to say this, it kind of doesn't matter what her beliefs are. It does and it doesn't, okay? Because she's going to change her beliefs if she sees you as an alpha male. She's going to gravitate, and women hate it when I say this, but it's the truth. She's going to gravitate towards your frame. And she's going to gravitate. That means she's going to start questioning her own belief systems, the way that she perceives the world, and she'll start altering it and changing it to match yours. All right. It will be a mixture, combination of something she can wash with her own identity, as well as what is complementary to your belief system and your way of seeing the world. And so because of that, beliefs are not always the biggest topic, because think about political discussion. For example, if you get right into a belief discussion and she says, well, I'm a feminist, and you say, well, and then you start challenging her feminism. Well, I think feminism is a detriment to society. And then like you guys get in this goofy conversation, this conflict over a belief system or ideology. You guys don't connect at all, do you? You end up butting heads. And, you could sit back and say, well, who wants a dirty feminist anyway for anything? And I get that. Okay. But here's the thing, though. Most people are not your extreme, take a big dump on a police car with, your purple hair at a protest type of a feminist, right? Most people are not that way. That's even claim certain ideologies. Most people are, pretty fluid in those ideologies, somewhere in the middle. But as soon as you start challenging those beliefs or saying that you believe something different or whatever, there's something that happens in the brain that causes them to dig their heels in further, because belief systems signal survival responses, right? Because if someone's belief system about how the world works is wrong, it could have led to their death in primal times. So this is why, like, for example, when you have those political discussions or religion discussions or those ideological discussions with people that are, they can get to be very charged. And do you want to have a negatively charged conversation and interaction with this girl you're trying to be intimate with or trying to bang or interested in or whatever on a date? Probably not. Okay. So that's why really for beliefs, it's more or less something. Some of you guys jump right into that and jump into ideological discussions with women. And that's largely a mistake. I would say that that's something you really don't need to care about too much. Now, if she's a staunch, crazy, let's say, victim's mindset feminist, I mean, the problem with feminism is that it's a victim's mentality. It's a victim's mindset, right? And so if she is somebody who takes on a victim's mindset and is always the victim of somebody else, somebody is doing, all of her shortcomings are blamed on someone else, that she's the victim of that. That's a problem with her character, and that's going to be a real problem in a relationship. That's why that's a red flag. But there's a lot of people who claim to be feminists that aren't necessarily like that. They just don't have the understanding of how flawed that ideology is in that regard. And in that case, it just doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter, and it's not worth a conflict with this girl on a date. You're just trying to see trying to bang, right? Or trying to just sort of, have something, see where that's going to go. It just does not worth that conflict, because she may change that ideology as she becomes more emotionally bought in to want to be with you. That happens all the time. That's what Frame's about. So, and if she doesn't, of course, then you've gone on a few dates with her, you guys maybe banged a few times or whatever, and it's casual, and you don't let it go any further because she's too staunch in her ideas, and that's not really productive and not going to be serving for you and your relationship, and that's fine. But getting into deep ideological discussions, probably a mistake on those first few encounters, because she's not emotionally bought in yet. And so I would steer away from those topics and just steer more into the topics I mentioned, right? But again, with those topics, you want to ask piercing questions that will really dig into her thoughts, beliefs, and motivations more than anything else. You're trying to determine her motivations, really what makes her tick. Dive into that and then move that into a deeper connection. Move that into having her feel like she knows you, like she's known you for a long time. But yet at the same time, because remember, women can hold competing ideas in their head at once. She knows you enough and is familiar enough with you. She has a comfort with you, but at the same time, there's a level of tension there as well, because she really doesn't know you, and there's attraction, and she's more curious about the sexual sides of you, right? And these are what you want to build. And that's not going to be built through dull conversation. It's going to be built through asking some of the targeted questions and some of those things that I mentioned. So thanks for dealing with this video. There's a lot of good actionable advice in it. I'm got a bunch of new crap, and I'm figuring out how stuff works. And like I said, I wasn't able to take any questions today in the chat. Usually I have a pile of them, but for some reason I can't see any of my chat questions. No idea why that is. So I'll have to figure that one out. But hey, we got some time in. It's Get the Girls Friday. So this is something that's going to help you not just get the girls, but once you got the girl on that date, make that connection with the girl in a way that's seductive, and in a way that's attractive, and that's going to move things along into a more productive, casual, and then maybe something more kind of relationship, right? That's what you guys are looking for. So there's that. Jam the like button. Thanks for jumping on. Frame course is something I've been working on. Probably going to call it not a frame course, by the way, but stay tuned for that. It's huge. Each module could be its own course in and of itself. I'm probably looking at 25 to 30 hours worth of material. So that's all going to be recorded, and you can refer back to and work at your own pace. Though we will have live calls for those who are in that quarter in order to answer questions. So there's a lot of value that's going to happen with this course. Just stay tuned, get on the email list, and stay tuned for it, because if you're on my list, you'll have early bird registration options when that happens, which will be offered at a discount. And again, too, guys need consultations, need some help, apexmindset.net. And I'll continue with my technology struggles. Maybe there's a techguy.net, the guy that actually knows what he's doing, though. I'm going to say that. Yeah, because there's people that know what they're doing, but man, I'll tell you, I'm getting a lot of answers, and then I implement answers, and then it doesn't work, or it works half the time, and then it's like more stuff, and it's a bit of a challenge, but we're getting there. I'd say I'm 85% there to where I want to be, and then once it's there, it'll be like totally kick ass, and production value will be better, and won't have so many of these challenges. All right. Well, anyways, I think that's it. I got a consultation now, so I got to go do that. Thanks, guys, for the support. You're awesome. Oh, shoot. I'll be in Miami next weekend, so any of you guys out in that area or whatever, shoot me a message or something. I'll be dicking around in Miami. It should be a good time. All right. I'm going to end this stream as soon as I can move my mouse to it. Peace out.